As far as we understand, President Trump's statements were made after communicating with Zelensky and, apparently, under the influence of the vision that Zelensky had laid out. This vision is completely contrary to our understanding of the current situation, but at the same time, we will also have the opportunity to bring our position to the American side, and this can be done by our Minister of National Affairs, Lavrov, who will meet with his vis-a-vis in New York at the Polish General Assembly. As for these specific statements, there is an obvious situation in the Russian economy, which more than eloquently says that despite all the illegal sanctions, despite tens of thousands of these sanctions, which are introduced against our country, our economy absolutely retains its stability and predictability. The economy retains its social orientation. The state fulfills and plans for years ahead the fulfillment of social obligations to the population. The economy of the country works in such a way as to fully meet the needs of our armed forces, which continue a special military operation. The war is not aimless. The war is to ensure our security and our interests and eliminate the root cause of the conflict that exists between Russia and Ukraine, and which, in fact, exists in the field of European security in general. And this is connected with the reluctance of both the Americans in the previous administrations and the Europeans to take into account our concerns. Russia will continue to defend its interests. The Russian side as a whole, and President Putin in particular, highly appreciate the political will of President Trump to further facilitate the search for a peaceful settlement. President Putin is open to the search for a peaceful settlement. The Kiev regime, meanwhile, has now completely gone into a passive position. Apparently, they are trying to demonstrate to their sponsors in Europe and to their curators that they can fight. But they should not forget that every day when the Ukrainian side refuses to negotiate, the Ukrainian side's negotiating positions will only worsen. This is the real situation of affairs, and the dynamics at the front is more than eloquently evidenced by this. The tone of statements can change from day to day. This is an independent track of our work. Unfortunately, it is going much slower than we would like. The obstacles in our relations, which have formed over the past decade under the previous administrations, are really very serious, and they prevent us from moving forward. At the same time, there are a huge number of issues that are beneficial for the Americans to cooperate with us. They are beneficial for the American business. The administration is generally business-oriented, and of course, it cannot help but understand what benefit lies in this possible bilateral trade and economic cooperation with Russia. We remain open to this. We believe that we should speed up our work on discussing those irritants that exist in bilateral relations while this work is going on. We hear a lot of hysteria about the fact that our military pilots, so to say, violated some rules and invaded the airspace, but all these statements are absolutely groundless and unproven. I would like to remind you once again about the statements of our Ministry of Defense. Our military aviation complies with all the rules and regulations of flight. and we comply with them in the strictest way.
Does the Kremlin recall the situation with Ukraine in the spring of 2022 when Ukraine was forced to continue fighting?
The situation is different now. First of all, Ukraine's position is much worse now. I repeat once again that it will only get worse. However, the fact that Ukraine is being forced to continue fighting and the thesis that Ukraine can win something back is, in our opinion, a wrong one. I repeat once again that the dynamics at the front lines are more than red-hot evidence of this. Of course, there is some part of the population in Moldova that is a supporter of Euro integration. There is also a considerable part of the population that is a supporter of building friendly and mutually beneficial relations in all areas, including our country. There is also a considerable part of the population that categorically does not accept the decision of the Sandow leadership to completely abstract Russia and to accuse Russia of everything and everything. We know that the part of the population that is a supporter of the Western course of the country's development will have the opportunity to speak at the elections and use their voice. We also know that the part of the population that is a supporter of the development of good relations, including with our country, will largely not get the right to use their voice. And this is not about some attempts to influence Russia. This is about the dissatisfaction of a large part of the population of Moldova because they are not given the right to use their voice at the elections. But, once again, even in Moldova itself, in the Moldovan society itself, a lot of people are supporters of a more balanced policy. This should be demonstrated by the elections. How honest these elections are, and how everyone is given the right to use their voice during the elections. How little pressure is put on those who do not agree with Sandow. How little pressure is put on the law enforcement agencies. How little searches are carried out in the houses of those who do not agree with Sandow. Well, perhaps it is worth judging in Brussels and in the European capitals. We know this well.